I am blind. Yet I married the Crown Prince Luzhan. Luzhan has a sharp tongue and a hot temper. He always grumbles when leading me by the hand. What would you do without me? Until his advisor gave him a guide dog. From then on, Luzhan was out of a job. That night, I heard the Crown Prince's furious scolding. Damn it, why did you have to send that? You had to send a dog. Now he has a dog. What about me? What am I supposed to do? And you, wagging your tail for him like a dog. It's a blessing I begged for years to get. What right do you have to replace me? I was born blind. After years of treatment, I can only see blurry outlines. My father saved money for me since I was little. He stuffed copper coins one by one into a clay jar. He said, ACI, don't be afraid. Dad will save lots of money for you. Later, he thought it was too slow and went for a big score. He followed Uncle Lou next door, took a knife, and went to conquer the world. 7 years later, the world had changed hands. Uncle Lou became the new emperor. My father earned some merit for following him. He was made a marquis and a general. At the palace banquet, the emperor held my father's hand. The two men looked at each other, holding hands. They reminisced about the past and wept together. After drinking too much, the emperor patted my father's shoulder. Ah, brother, what else do you want? Big brother will agree to anything, my father sniffled. His mind went blank. My daughter's marriage hasn't been arranged yet. Later, according to what he recalled after sobering up, he originally wanted to ask for a county title for me, and later find a son-in-law to marry into the family. Who knew the bot was too generous and decided on the spot. DCI is a good girl. With a wave of his hand, he bestowed his son on me. All the civil and military officials changed color, some remonstrated, some coughed. The emperor was silent for a moment, then realized. The crown prince can't marry into the family, so I became the crown princess. The day after the wedding, we went to the palace to pay respects to the emperor. He was reviewing memorials in the imperial study. He bestowed a pile of silk and jewels and waved his hand, saying, The empress is thinking of you. Go to Fingy Palace. The long corridor was eerily quiet. I held onto the attendant's hand, my fingertips tightening, a bit panicked. My mother died early. After my father went to conquer the world, he left me in the Liu family's care. The one who took care of me the most over the years was Louis. The current empress, Louis, is a formidable woman. The Liu family's conquest went smoothly, not without her strategic planning. She is shrewd and decisive. She always sees things 3 points deeper. So I thought she must not approve of this marriage. The position of crown princess is crucial. How could a blind woman lie me bare this marriage? It was all because the emperor was drunk and impulsive. For the crown prince and the court, it was not a good met. How disappointed Louis must be. The more I thought, the heavier my heart became. The palace bricks underfoot seemed uneven. In a daze, I stumbled forward. Hey, the attendant's low cry came as she failed to steady me. A hand reached out from the side and caught my arm. Can't even walk properly anymore? Luzhan's voice sounded as he pushed the attendant aside. He took my hand himself. The long corridor stretched on. Luzhan's palm was very hot. He led me step by step. As soon as we entered Fingy Palace, Luzhan was called into the inner room by Aunt Lu. I held half a piece of lotus seed cake, sitting in the outer room, chewing slowly. I could faintly hear voices from inside, but not clearly. Only Luzhan's occasional raised voice, tinged with some embarrassment. The pastry was very sweet. It stuck in my throat, so I took small sips of tea to wash it down. The palace attendants were silent, only the soft clink of the teacup lid. After a long time, footsteps approached. Luzhan came out, stirring a small breeze as he passed. He didn't say anything. He just tapped on the armrest of my chair. Louis's female official smiled and invited me in. The scent was incense, calm and quiet. It was the CU fragrance Aunt Lu used. She took my hand. She made me sit beside her. ACI. Her voice was gentle. Now that you're married, there are some things you need to learn. You say, for example, how to handle your husband. I was stunned. This wasn't what I expected. She said, men have a base nature in their bones. You can't just control them. You have to think about your own benefit. Usually, you can coax them, but when it's time to set rules, you can't be soft-hearted. If he's stubborn, you be even more stubborn. If he acts up, you give him the cold shoulder. Don't give too many sweet rewards, or he won't appreciate them. He needs to know your kindness isn't a given. Your smile is something he should cherish. Her fingertip traced a line on my palm. With her guidance, I came out of Fingy Palace. Luzhan was leaning against the corridor pillar. Seeing me come out, he lifted his eyelids. What did mother tell you? Took so long. I tilted my head towards him and smiled slightly. Mother taught me some principles. What principles? The principles between husband and wife. Luzhan suddenly coughed violently, as if choked by saliva. After a long while, he forced out, learn something good. On the third day, the return visit. The carriage curtain moved. Luzhan jumped down first. He turned around and reached out his hand. Holding my arm, he helped me down from the carriage. As soon as my feet touched the ground, my father came over. Luzhan cleared his throat. After a couple of pleasantries, he directly listed dishes. Dad, I want braised a treasure duck, crab meat lion's head, stewed. In one breath, he rattled off 7 or 8 dishes. All of them were our chef's specialties. My father chuckled. I knew you'd want lunch. It's all prepared, don't worry. Luzhan's eyes lit up. Great, Dad. For dinner, I want sautéed sliced fish with leeks, oil-exploded shrimp, braised lamb, and a ham and bamboo shoot soup. The air was still for a moment. My father took a breath and patted his chest. All right, Luzhan was satisfied. Thanks, Dad. Lujan was quite a character. He served food with his hand, chatted with his mouth, and could also put food on my plate. My bowl was never empty. He'd pick up a duck leg and put it in my bowl, then add a lion's head. After eating, deboned fish fell into my bowl. I buried my head and ate heartily. Finally, Lujan watched me finish my soup. He stood up and pulled me up too. Dad, let's go for a stroll together. I have things to do. You two go. Lujan had to take me to the garden alone to help me digest. He led me very slowly. From time to time, he reminded me, steps ahead, left, there's a pond. We walked for a while. He stopped under a tree. The surroundings were quiet, only the sound of wind in the leaves. He suddenly sighed, very emotionally. He tapped my arm with his finger. ACI, ACI. What would you do without me? There he goes again. Lujan has loved saying this since he was a child. When I was 7, I walked into a tree for the first time and got a bump on my forehead. Lujan scolded me for being clumsy, while carefully applying medicine. He said, what would you do without me? When I was 10, I got lost in the back garden. He found me and grabbed my wrist to take me back. He said, what would you do without me? After so many times, I got curious. I secretly asked Louis. He always says I can't manage without him. It feels strange. Aunt Lou was arranging flowers at the time. She just asked calmly, does it make you uncomfortable? I thought about it and shook my head. Not really. Every time he says it, he does take better care of me afterwards. As if to prove his point, Aunt Lou smiled. Her tone was light. Let him be. It's just a quirk, can't be cured, doesn't need to be cured. I understood. This was Lujan's chronic ailment, flaring up from time to time, but Aunt Lou said I could coax him more, so I spoke, softening my voice. Yeah, what would I do without you? His footsteps paused. The fingers pinching my arm tightened, then loosened. Good that you know, he snorted. The mature tone in his voice almost cracked. After returning, I decided to follow the advice and coax him more. Lujan said he'd show me around the Eastern Palace. Listen carefully. I immediately nodded, my voice especially soft. Oh cool, whatever you say. He seemed choked by this obedience. He paused for a moment before reaching out to take my hand. Hold tight. If you fall, no one will pick you up. I squeezed his fingers, not letting go. The Eastern Palace was very large. Lujan led me extremely slowly. He pointed as he walked. On the right is the main hall, where I see people and handle business. Ahead on the left, turn left, is the study. There are many shelves inside. Don't wander in alone. Be careful not to bump into things. On the right is the garden, with a pond. There are fish, flowers, and railings around it. Don't get too close. In front of my eyes, there were only blurry patches of color and light. I followed his voice, mapping the layout in my mind. He described in detail the paths, obstacles, where I could touch, where I couldn't, all clearly explained. When we reached a corner of the corridor, he stopped and guided my hand forward to touch a pillar. Remember, you have to go around here. My fingertips touched the CU wood. I remember. He led me forward a few steps. This corridor is long. It takes about 15 minutes to walk through. The ground is flat, just walk straight. There's a breeze in the corridor. Carrying the early summer heat, it was very quiet. Only our footsteps and his voice. After walking for a while, he stopped at a place. This is the small garden behind the bedchamber. You can come here for some fresh air in the morning. The ground is flat, no steps. 15 steps to the right. There's a stone bench under the tree. Don't bump into it. I nodded. He seemed to turn his head to look at me. After a moment, he suddenly asked, how much do you remember? I blinked and told the truth. About 30%, he let out a scornful laugh. Clumsy, there wasn't much disdain in his tone. He squeezed my wrist and took my hand again. If you can't remember, it's fine, as long as I'm here. That phrase sounded familiar. I could sense the what would you do without me coming. It was about to flare up. I immediately followed up, my tone sincere. Yeah, good thing I have you. His footsteps paused slightly. He didn't respond, but the palm holding mine felt even hotter. Lujan led me around 2 more paths, pointed out the direction of the kitchen. Finally, he stopped in front of a moongate. Inside, don't go in yourself. It's the storage area. He didn't finish. He stopped his detailed directions. He just held my hand and walked in silence, until we reached the front of the bedchamber. He let go. Try it yourself. See if you still remember where the door is. I looked at the blurry red patch in front of me, estimated the distance, slowly stretched out my foot, carefully. 11 steps, turn right. Reach out and feel forward. My fingertips touched the CU doorframe. Found it. I breathed a sigh of relief, turned my head, and smiled at him. I can remember a little. He stood in the light and shadow, not saying a word. After a few seconds, he snorted again. Well, you're not that stupid. Today, Lujan brought back a little dog. He said it was a guide dog his advisor gave me. What does it look like? I asked, looking up. Yellow fur, shiny. Ears a bit floppy, eyes are black and shiny. He described it carefully. Finally, he asked, do you like it? I nodded. My fingertips touched the soft fur. Let's give it a name. Lujan touched the back of my hand. Fu Gue, I blurted out. So practical, so auspicious. Lujan was stunned for a moment, then clapped his hands and laughed heartily. Good, loud and clear, great meaning. His laughter was hearty. Not bad, ACI. You have a talent for naming. He genuinely thought the name was quite good. After all, his naming sense was worse than mine. Fu Gue was very smart. In just a few days, he learned the paths of the Eastern Palace. He would stop at thresholds, slow down at steps. During meals, Lujan habitually reached out his hand to me. Let's go eat. Fu Gue let out a whine. He grabbed the hem of my skirt and led me towards the dining table. Lujan's hand grabbed nothing. After the meal, he wanted to take me to the garden to help me digest. He had just opened his mouth. ACI, but Fu Gue was already wagging his tail. He nudged my leg with his head, signaling it was time to go. Lujan's words got stuck in his throat. He wanted to take my hand as usual, but Fu Gue beat into it. His small body stood between me and him. His black, shiny eyes looked at Lujan. His tail wagged like a little windmill, as if to say, leave this small task of leading the way to me. From then on, Lujan was completely out of a job. At night, when it was time to sleep, I pulled Fu Gue into my blanket. His body was warm and furry. Holding him felt comfortable. As I stroked Fu Gue's soft fur, I remembered there was another person lying beside me. I hesitated for a moment, then turned my head and whispered, if you mind. I'll take Fu Gue to the side hall to sleep. As soon as I finished speaking, a figure sat up sharply beside me. Who said you could go to the side hall? Lujan's voice was filled with disbelief, and the anger of being offended. He lowered his head and glared at me, then glared at Fu Gue in my arms, grinding his teeth. It's just an extra dog in the bed. Can't you sleep anymore? He flopped back down heavily, pulled his own blanket over himself and turned his back to me. After a while, he turned back again, stared at Fu Gue, and added viciously, let him sleep on the outside. Squeezing in the middle, what's that about? I silently moved Fu Gue a bit closer to the edge of the bed. I was sleeping soundly, half-conscious. I felt a rustling beside me. It seemed like Lujan got up. I turned over and continued sleeping. I don't know how long passed. I reached my hand to the warm spot beside me and felt around. Empty. Where's Fu Gue? I woke up with a start. My heart started racing. I sat up and called softly, Fu Gue, no answer. Only the sound of wind outside the window. I fumbled to get out of bed, intending to call a maid. As soon as my feet touched the ground, before I could stand steady, I heard a voice coming from the side hall. My eyesight is bad, so my hearing is sharper. It was Lujan's voice, and another, slightly deeper male voice. It was the often visiting, Mr. Zhou. Your Highness, Mr. Zhou asked, is that guide dog working out well? There was a moment of silence. Then Lujan suddenly raised his voice, a low growl. Damn it, why did you have to send that? You had to send a dog. I was startled. I held onto the bedpost to steady myself. The commotion next door didn't stop. Now he has a dog. What about me? What am I supposed to do? Mr. Zhou seemed stunned by the scolding. He didn't say a word for a long time. But Lujan got angrier as he spoke. His footsteps paced impatiently a few times. Then I heard him grit his teeth and growl. And you, wagging your tail for him like a dog. It's a blessing I begged for years to get. What right do you have to take it away? In the side hall, Lujan's scolding continued, with a reckless, unrestrained energy. Zhou Chang, what were you thinking? I told you to find something to amuse him, not to cut me out. Mr. Zhou's voice was hesitant. Your Highness, I just thought the dog was clever and gentle. It could see your highness's burden. This is a raid on my house. Lujan's voice got even higher. Now his eyes are only on that dog. He got more and more agitated. His speech was fast, like spilling beans. I have to see if the dog is willing before I can even hold his hand. What right does he have? What right? I'm the rightful one. I'm the one who married him properly. The door hinge creaked. Lujan, what do you mean by wagging your tail for him like a dog? A blessing you begged for years to get? I stood there, holding the doorframe. In the blurry light and shadow in front of me, I could make out two figures, and a small, furry shadow on the ground. Its tail was still wagging. Dead silence. I shall take my leave. Mr. Zhou slipped away along the wall. The door closed softly. Lujan's Adam's apple bobbed. His eyes darted around, not daring to land on my face. He struggled for a long time but couldn't form a complete sentence. I took a step forward. At that moment, Lujan's sharp gaze swept over. ACI, are you trying to die? Not wearing shoes, he suddenly roared. In a few quick strides, he rushed over. Before I could react, the world spun. He directly hoisted me over his shoulder. Head down. Lujan, I pounded his back. He ignored me, using one hand to secure my flailing legs. He walked with his head down towards the bedchamber. Put me down. Shut up. He walked quickly and steadily. His shoulder was digging into my stomach, uncomfortable. Fu Gue trotted along behind. His tail wagged happily. The servants all lowered their heads and stepped aside, their shoulders shaking. I could hear the heavy, raspy sound of his breathing from his chest, urgent and heavy. He carried me all the way to the bedchamber. Then he tossed me onto the bed. Fu Gue jumped up lightly and lay down at my feet. Lujan stood by the bed, his chest heaving. He glared at me, then glared at Fu Gue. Finally, he said gruffly, sleep. He blew out the lamp. He lifted his own blanket and lay down, his back to me, wrapped up tightly. Sleeping was impossible. I sat up and fumbled around, moved to the inside of the bed, facing him, reached out to pull down the blanket covering his head. He held it tightly. I pulled it down a little. He yanked it back, wrapping himself even tighter. After a few rounds, I lost patience, so I just fumbled until I touched his face. My fingertips touched his skin. Instantly, Lu Zhan's whole body stiffened. His breathing stopped. Taking advantage of his daze, I yanked the blanket down in one swift motion. His eyes were wide open, staring at me. Even in the dark, I could see the SOC in his blurry outline. My hand was still on his face. I traced his features. Then I raised my hand and gave him a light slap. A soft smack. It didn't hurt, but it was crisp. Lu Zhan was completely stunned. ACI. You hit me. The Fu Gue was startled. He lifted his head and let out a whine. You deserved it. I withdrew my hand. I spoke plainly, making things clear. What blessing? What did you beg for years to get? He seemed to be choked, instantly silent. In the darkness, I could feel his burning gaze fixed on my face. After a long while, his Adam's apple moved heavily. I thought he would roar, making the palace beams shake, but instead, his voice was low and soft, carrying a trembling that came from bearing his soul. I lie you. Is that not allowed? I slowly crawled back to my spot and lay down. The figure beside me moved abruptly. That's it? What else? I turned my back to him, pulled Fu Gue into my arms. Sleep, behind me. Lu Zhan sat up in anger. He pointed at me, his mouth opening and closing for a long time without producing any words. Finally, he flopped back down with extreme force. The bedboard let out a dull thud. I closed my eyes, but the corners of my mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. Lu Zhan's little thoughts weren't hidden very cleverly. Before, it could be passed off as childhood sweetheart affection. He was used to taking care of me. But marriage? With his temper, if he wasn't willing, he would have caused a huge scene long ago. That day at the palace banquet, as soon as the imperial edict was issued, the entire court was in an uproar. The old ministers beat their chests and stamped their feet, saying, the position of crown princess cannot be treated as a joke. After my father sobered up, he was so scared he almost knelt down to beg the emperor to revoke the order. Lu Zhan sat there quietly, until the emperor asked, what does the crown prince think? Only then did he stand up slowly. He didn't look at anyone, just mumbled a vague towards the throne. Then he quickly knelt down and kowtowed firmly. Later, when he came to deliver the betrothal gifts, his ears were bright red. His voice was low as he promised my father, Dad, I will treat ACI well. My whole life, I will treat her well. My father didn't dare to respond. He had probably never seen the crown prince looking so shy and bashful. Later, on the wedding night, his hands were unsteady when he lifted my veil. He stuttered when talking to me. When he went out, he tripped over his own feet and fell, and still insisted he was fine. I remember all these little, scattered moments. He thought he could hide it, but liking someone can't be hidden. His breathing, his tone, his actions, all full of flaws. But it wasn't lie in the storybooks. He confessed, and we immediately understood each other's feelings. I knew Lu Zhan's feelings, that awkward, burning feeling he had hidden for years. But what about me? I felt my own heart. It was beating steadily. Besides finding tonight's scene a bit amusing, there wasn't much of a turbulent wave. If I had to say, it was probably habit. I was used to having him around, from age 7 to 17, 10 years. He was a noisy, boisterous shadow. I couldn't shake him off, and I couldn't do without him. This habit was too deep, too heavy. It almost drowned out any other possible feeling. Lie? Maybe, but this lie of mine seemed different from his for me. I turned over to face him. His breathing was still uneven, his body rigid, clearly still mortified. I quietly reached out my finger. Through the air, I traced his blurry outline. This person, I probably couldn't leave him, but this couldn't leave. Was it because of the 10-year habit, or because of the flutter of that unique feeling called lie? I didn't know. 2 days passed peacefully. For me, Lu Zhan was very uncomfortable after that night's confession. He either lingered in the study until late at night, or slipped out early in the morning. His speech was stiff, as if I owed him money. I was as usual. I ate when I should, slept when I should. Petting Fu Gui's fur was very pleasant. That day, his cousin invited us to the outskirts hunting grounds. I wanted to stay in the Eastern Palace. Lu Zhan forced me into the carriage. What can I do there? I asked. You're turning into a mushroom at home. Oh, what's wrong with being a mushroom? Mushrooms are great too. The hunting grounds are on the outskirts. Lu Zhan was surrounded by noble kids, riding a full lap. I entered the tent. There was grilled venison on the shore. Oily, fragrant, tender meat. The seasoning was just right, delicious. I didn't know which piece I was on when the tent flap suddenly flew open. A strong wind and the scent of grass rushed in. Lu Zhan was back. He walked up to me in a few steps. His shadow fell over me. His voice sounded off. Delicious? I pinched the bamboo skewer, looked up, and blinked. He reached out and took the plate away. Venison is heating, hard to digest. He stood beside me for a while. His breathing gradually steadied. His gaze landed on my face, a bit heavy. After a moment, he whispered tentatively, want to go out for a spin? I'll take you, you take me. He hummed in agreement, his tone serious. We're out now, I'll take you. The wind hit our faces. The early summer wind carried the scent of grass. Everything before my eyes turned into flowing ribbons of color. Green was the meadow, brown was the earth. Occasionally, a flash of bright, strange clothing. I I couldn't see clearly, only the dizziness from the speed. The ground lurched and fell away. I could feel the horse's muscles stretching, the smooth heartbeat and the strength of his arms. If you're scared, close your eyes, his voice mixed with the wind. I closed my eyes, my other senses became sharper. The wind grew stronger, lifting strands of hair. The air smelled of freedom. And the crisp, clean scent of soap on her. I could even taste a hint of sweetness in the wind, probably wildflowers. This was a truly rare, thrilling life. The sound of hooves faded, the dust thinned. The scent of flowers grew stronger. Lujan reined in the horse, slowing down. He led me around a corner and stopped. We're here. His voice was tight. There's a patch of wild roses ahead. They're blooming pretty well. He dismounted and reached up to help me down. My feet touched the solid ground, my skirt brushing the grass. The rich scent of flowers enveloped me. I took a deep breath, walked a few steps, and asked him, "Did you go back just now specifically to bring me here to smell the roses?" His Adam's apple bobbed as he slowly hummed in agreement. He admitted it. I was stunned. This wasn't Liam. Before I could react, he spoke again. His voice was low but clear. "Shu si, what I said that night was serious. I wasn't drunk, and I wasn't having a fit. I just lie you. I have for a long time." He paused, then sped up his words. "So don't try to weasel out of it or pretend you don't understand." I was completely dumbfounded. This direct confession threw me off. I thought he'd be awkward for at least 10 days or half a month. I didn't expect it to be by the wild roses. He confessed, his cheeks burning. I opened my mouth to say something. Lie I know or shut up. But I couldn't get a single word out. Luckily, I couldn't see. I didn't have to meet his scorching gaze. It was quiet for a while. He nudged my arm. Say something. What could I say? I'd never been through this before, and my face was still hot. My mind was buzzing. What did he expect me to say? You don't lie me. Well, no, that wasn't it. I picked at my fingers, held it in for a long time, and finally just went, at a loss for words. He choked for a moment. He exhaled heavily. Fine, just keep torturing me. He pulled me back, gritting his teeth. After we get back, Lujan forced me to listen to opera. It was all about talented scholars and beautiful women, full of grudges and lingering lop. A down-and-out scholar meeting a rich girl, a devoted woman and a heartless man. The most popular tragic lop stories of the day. It gave me a headache. It was too ridiculous. I pinched Fugue's paw and muttered under my breath. This scholar has a screw loose. Instead of taking the imperial exams, he wants to jump in a river. Next to me, there was a crack as Lujan crushed a walnut. His face darkened, his hand white. We changed to another shitari, and the next one was even worse. A rich young lady broke with her family for a poor gardener. In the end, she froze to death on the street. I was confused. What was she thinking? Her parents left her shops, and enough land to last 10 lifetimes. Why run off with a gardener who couldn't even support himself? He stared at me, his expression complex, trying to find a trace of me playing dumb. Finally, he slumped back in his chair, rubbing his brow. He waved his hand, dismissing the opera troupe. Forget it. Casting pearls before swine. In the end, Aunt Lou was the one who rescued me. He had a friend from the martial arts world who knew a divine doctor. Aunt Lou asked him to make the connection. She paid a hefty sum to have the divine doctor treat me. The divine doctor was an old woman of few words. Her fingers were dry and warm. She felt my pulse and examined my eyelids for a long time. After pondering for a while, she slowly said, "Congenital deficiency, blocked meridians. Treating it will be troublesome and painful. I'll first perform acupuncture to unblock your meridians. It will be a bit swollen and painful to promote blood circulation." "Please, doctor." I nodded. The acupuncture was noticeably sore and swollen, but before I could even react, I heard someone sniffling next to me. Lujan was standing nearby, his brows tightly furrowed, as if the needles were going into him. At the next needle, he sniffled and a tear fell. At the next one, he sniffled again and 2 more tears fell. While Dr. Sun turned to get more needles, I tilted my head and whispered, "I'm really fine." He didn't say a word, but a teardrop fell with a plop. Aunt Lou was sitting nearby, drinking tea. Her gaze swept over him as she set down her cup. With a crisp sound, she said, "Look at you, so pathetic." Her tone was flat. "Go to the small kitchen and watch the medicine." Lujan stiffened his neck, wanting to argue. He was silenced by a single glare. He dawdled, looking back every few steps, and left. After the acupuncture, Dr. Sun packed up her tools and withdrew. The attendants left, leaving only me and Aunt Lou. The air was filled with the scent of herbs. I pinched my fingertips, confusion rising again. "Mom, I don't think I lie Lujan that much. At least not as much as he likes me." Aunt Lou seemed to have expected this question. She stirred the ashes in the incense burner. Her tone was flat. "Who cares? Do you hate him?" "No." I immediately shook my head. "He takes care of you. Doesn't he do a good job?" "Pretty good." "Then that's settled." Aunt Lou looked up, her gaze clear and bright. "Your own comfort is what matters most. Thinking too much is just tiring." That made sense. With Lujan by my side, I felt at ease. I was used to it. But, wasn't this unfair to him? I licked my dry lips. I was enjoying his kindness, but couldn't give an equal response. "This isn't right." Aunt Lou looked at me for a moment. Then she suddenly smiled. "Silly girl, you two have just been together for too long." She took my hand and patted it. "Move to Fingy Palace and lie there for a while. Spend some time apart. Think clearly and quietly. When the distance gives you the answer, it will come naturally." So I moved to Fingy Palace. When Xiaozhu told Lujan, He immediately bristled. Can't Dr. Sun come to the Eastern Palace? Aunt Lu shot him a glance. He instantly wilted. On the first day, he came early in the morning. He lingered beside me. Are you comfortable here? The incense in Fengi Palace smells better than the Eastern Palace. He stayed until dusk before Aunt Lu shooed him away. On the second day, he came at mealtime, crashing both breakfast and lunch. He was even planning to stay for dinner, but he was summoned away by his father's eunuch, saying a mountain of memorials was waiting for the crown prince to review. On the third day, he sat down next to me. Zhu Ci, when are you coming home? I thought for a moment, then shook my head. Wait a little longer. He didn't say anything. He stood there for a while, then left in a huff. On the fourth day, he got smarter. Fu Gue misses you. He shoved the dog towards me. His tone was stiff. He won't eat. I didn't reach out. Aunt Lu took the dog slowly and deliberately. She cradled it and stroked its fur. She looked up at Lu Zhan. Perfect. Leave him here with me for a couple of days to fatten him up. She watched Fu Gue whimper in Aunt Lu's arms. His expression was one of utter despair. The fifth day was calm. His parents gave him a ton of work. He couldn't come. Only a young eunuch brought a plate of osmanthus cakes. I sat under the eaves, looking at the last half of the osmanthus cake. My mind was empty, with only one thought. What was Lu Zhan doing? Was he slashing through those memorials, frowning, looking impatient? Or was he dragging some advisor aside again, listening to their endless complaints? Or was he thinking about me too? The moment this thought popped up, I was startled myself. My fingers unconsciously traced a few patterns on my knee. Suddenly, I couldn't sit still. I stood up. Groping my way, I walked back into the hall. Aunt Lu heard my footsteps and looked up. Mom, I want to go back to the Eastern Palace. I stood still. My voice was a little dry. She didn't speak immediately. She turned a page of her book and smiled softly. I licked my lips and added, I want to go now. Aunt Lu put down her book. She looked over. Figured it out? My face felt a little hot. I lowered my head. I haven't figured out any big truth. I just want to see him. All right. Her tone was crisp. Someone will take you. I turned and walked out, my steps a bit hurried. Just as I reached the door, I heard her slowly add from behind. Walk slowly, don't fall. He's not going anywhere. My face grew even hotter. At dinner, Lu Zhan added several dishes, all my favorites. He kept piling food in my bowl. My bowl was overflowing, but he barely ate. He just stared at me. That night, after washing up, we lay down side by side. Fu Gue was squeezed in between us. His furry head nuzzled my chin, panting. The candlelight was hazy. For a moment, neither of us spoke, only the sound of each other's breathing and Fu Gue smacking his lips. Zhu Ci. Is the bed in Fengi Palace not as comfortable as the one in the Eastern Palace? It's so cool. The chef's pastries there aren't as good as the Eastern Palace's, right? They're about the same. He didn't say anything else. After a while, he turned over to face me. I felt his gaze land on my face. It was a bit hot. He just stared straight at me, not saying a word. His breathing gradually grew heavier. A flash of inspiration hit me, and my heart skipped a beat. I hesitated for a moment. Then I reached out and gently covered Fu Gue's little dog head. Then, relying on my sense of direction, I leaned forward slightly, towards the vague outline of him, and quickly brushed against it. My lips touched a patch of warmth. It was a bit dry. The position seemed a little off. I grazed the corner of his mouth and immediately pulled back. My own face was already burning. The person beside me froze. His breathing completely stopped. The tent was so quiet I could hear the faint crackling of the candle. For a long time, he seemed to finally find his breath again. He sharply sucked in a breath of cold air. His voice was trembling, stammering. You, why did you kiss me? I kissed you because I wanted to. My face grew even hotter. I thought, isn't that what you wanted? But out loud, I forced calm and mumbled quietly. After I finished, I let go and lay flat. I pulled the blanket up to cover half my face. Since that night, it was like a thin layer of window paper had been quietly broken between us. He wouldn't say it outright. He would just find times when no one was around, and stiffly sit down next to me. Then he wouldn't move, his breathing deliberately light, yet carrying a hint of barely concealed anticipation. I knew this meant he wanted me to make a move. At first, I couldn't gauge the position. I just lean in based on feeling. Sometimes I'd kiss his chin, sometimes his cheek. He'd be very dissatisfied. Off, I'd acknowledge it and grope around to adjust again. The moment my fingertips touched the corner of his mouth, he would eagerly meet me and precisely capture my lips. Later, he seemed to get a taste for it. He went from waiting to ambushing. I couldn't see, so I was defenseless. While I was drinking tea, he'd suddenly lean in and quickly peck me on the lips, leaving behind a crisp, clean scent of tea. Leaning by the window listening to the rain, he would wrap his arms around me from behind. Bowing his head, a warm touch would land on the side of my neck. It tickled, making me flinch. After it happened many times, I started to figure out his tricks. Whenever he got close, he'd always stir up a slight commotion, and that special, clean scent of his. But I would mostly pretend not to notice. Once, during an afternoon nap, I was half asleep. I felt him quietly lean in, his movements very gentle. Our lips met and lingered for a good while. It was tender and affectionate. I was just about to respond, but he got shy first. He was about to pull away. I instinctively moved forward a little. His breath hitched, and he immediately pounced on me, kissing me harder than before. Just as we were getting lost in the moment, his body stiffened. He stopped. "What's wrong?" I was confused. His voice was laced with lingering breathlessness, and a hint of unbelievable awkwardness. "Fugue is watching us." I listened carefully. Sure enough, I heard Fugue's slight breathing nearby, and the rustling sound of his tail sweeping across the carpet. My face instantly burned up. Lu Zhan shot upright. He spoke to the furry lump on the floor, his tone embarrassed and annoyed. "Close your eyes. See no evil. Don't you understand?" Fugue let out a low woof. His tail wagged even faster. Over 2 months, the herbal medicine and acupuncture hadn't been in vain. By autumn, I could make out the vague outlines of light and shadow. It was just in time for the autumn harvest. Lu Zhan was to lead a Tim to the countryside for an inspection, for about half a month. He was worried. He nagged and gave me a long list of instructions. I pinched Fugue's paw. "Go on, don't worry. I'll go back to the Marquis' manor for a few days. I have Fugue and my dad." Only then did he reluctantly leave. My mood was light and relaxed. My eyesight was getting better. That morning, I woke up in my own room at the manor. I instinctively opened my eyes. The light made my eyelids twitch. I closed my eyes, then slowly opened them again. The canopy above the bed had clear, carved wood patterns. The gauze curtain was a light green, letting in the morning light. It was very gentle. I sat up abruptly. My heart was pounding, almost bursting out of my chest. I could see. I turned my head to look at the dressing table by the window. A blurry figure was reflected in the bronze mirror. That was me. I raised my hand and looked at my own fingers. Each one was clear and distinct. "Fugue." I tried calling out. The little yellow dog lying on the footstool immediately lifted its head. Its black, shiny eyes looked over. Its tail thumped against the floor. It really was Fugue. His yellow fur was shiny. His ears were a little floppy, exactly as Lu Zhan had described. Every part of this place matched the contours I had imagined in my mind from touching. It was both the same and different. So this was how bright colors were. So this was how clear light and shadow were. When my dad came in with breakfast, I was still sitting on the bed, dazed. Seeing me staring straight at him, he almost dropped the bowl of porridge in his hand. "ACI, you can see?" His voice trembled. I nodded. My throat was so tight, I couldn't say a single word. My dad was stunned for a moment. He put the bowl down on the table with a clang. He rushed over in a few steps and hugged me tightly, and burst into loud sobs. A battle-hardened general crying like a child. When he was done crying, he wiped his face, half crying, half laughing. Good. My girl can see." After he said that, he rushed out in a flurry. "I have to send a memorial to the palace immediately." Later, I heard from the servants that my dad and the emperor had another good cry together in the imperial study. Not long after, Aunt Lu sent someone to bring me to the palace. She didn't say much, just took my hand, and carefully examined my eyes. Then she gently patted the back of my hand. "Come, let's go look at the garden." I followed closely behind her. The garden at Fingy Palace. For the first time, I saw it so clearly. The rockery, the flowing water, and all the plants I used to only identify by smell and touch. Aunt Lu handed me a flower. "Does it smell different from what you remember?" I took it. Tiny, golden flowers clustered together. The fragrance was sweet and mellow. It was completely different from the feeling I had when I only knew its scent. Vision made that sweetness concrete. Made it richer. "This is osmanthus." Aunt Lu's voice was calm. She picked up another one. It had a few light purple flowers on it. "This is a cotton rose." I watched her trim the flower branches. Her movements were elegant and composed. My gaze fell on the fine lines at the corners of her eyes. So this was what Aunt Lu looked like. Both lie I had imagined, and not quite. I could see. This world had suddenly opened up before my eyes. The day Lu Zhan returned, he was travel-worn. He strode into the hall. His cloak still carried the dust from outside. I was sitting by the window. I heard him and looked up. The sunlight was bright, falling on him. I looked at him carefully, inch by inch. His brow bone was high, his nose bridge was straight, his jawline a little tight. His lips, they looked nigh to kiss. So this was Lu Zhan. So this was what he looked like. He walked up to me in a few steps. His shadow fell over me. His gaze burned as he stared into my eyes. "You can really see?" I nodded, not saying a word. I just looked at him seriously. Looked at his eyebrows, his eyes, his slightly dry, chapped lips. I wanted to carve this clear, vivid image of him into my mind. He seemed a little uncomfortable under my gaze. His eyes flickered for a moment, then fixed back on me. "What are you looking at?" He instinctively tried to act tough, but his tone couldn't harden, his voice trailing off. I kept looking at him. Slowly, my eyes curved into a smile. "I'm looking at you." These 3 words seemed to hit a nerve. Lu Zhan's eyes instantly turned red. He abruptly turned his face away, raised his hand and roughly wiped his eyes with the back of it. His shoulders trembled slightly. When he turned back, his eyes were wet, and the tip of his nose was red. "Shusi," he called my name, his voice hoarse, with a thick nasal tone. Then he opened his arms. With that reckless, unstoppable energy, he pulled me tightly into his embrace. His strength was so great it almost crushed me. His chin dug heavily into my shoulder, a little painful. I could barely breathe from his grip, but I could feel his body trembling. And the rapidly spreading, scorching wetness on the side of my neck. He was crying. Crying for me. That soft spot in my heart was deeply struck. A sharp, sour ache spread through me. My own eyes started to burn. I raised my hand and gently wrapped it around his back, patting him slowly, every now and then. I can see, I whispered back to him. He cried even harder. Snot and tears were probably all over my shoulder. I was just thinking about whether I should remind him to mind his appearance, when he suddenly lifted his head, sobbing. A shiny snot bubble, with his breathing, wobbled precariously at the tip of his nose. I froze. He froze too. We stared at each other. The bubble popped with a pop. A little bit of wet, CU liquid, rubbed off on my newly changed dress. I looked down at the faint, damp spot on my collar. Then looked up at him, his eyes red. His face a blank expression. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. Lujan's face instantly turned red. Juicy. Don't laugh, he ground his teeth, but the tips of his ears were blood red. I pressed my lips together, but my shoulders wouldn't stop shaking. He glared at me fiercely, reaching out to wipe my face. Then he thought better of it. In the end, he could only stiffen his neck and pretend nothing had happened. What are you looking at? Never seen someone cry? I've seen it, but never a crown prince cry a bubble. Of course, I didn't say that. I just curved my eyes into a smile, and took in his embarrassed expression. Carefully, clearly. Committed it to memory. Ever since my eyes got better, Lujan had become completely different. Specifically, he started wearing more clothes. You see, he used to sleep completely naked. At night, when I reached out my hand, I would touch a patch of firm, warm skin. Lie a warm, hot iron. But now, he was dressed from head to toe. His collar was fastened meticulously. All the ties were tied in double knots. Before, when I was blind, he was perfectly fine being naked. Now that I could see, I didn't get any benefits at all. That night, when we lay down, I deliberately reached out my hand. My fingertips had just touched the fabric of his clothes when he flinched as if he'd been pricked by a needle. What are you doing? His voice was strained, especially clear in the darkness. What's wrong? I asked, as if I had every right. He was silent for a moment. Wrap yourself in your little blanket and go to sleep. I don't want to. I crawled over using both hands and feet. Without a word, I tugged at the sash of his inner robe. Lujan froze completely. He suddenly pressed down on my mischievous hand. His voice changed pitch. A blessing. How did you become a hooligan now? I've recently had an epiphany, I said matter-of-factly. Besides, we've been husband and wife for so long. Aren't we going to consummate the marriage? I pushed aside her blocking hand. If this gets out, I said seriously, what will people think? That our relationship is bad? Or that you're incapable? I leaned close to his ear, lowering my voice. He paused, his breathing noticeably heavier. Don't provoke me, he said hoarsely, but the strength in his hand gradually loosened. I took the chance to pull open his collar. My fingertips touched warm skin. He suddenly grabbed his collar again. Last struggle. Where's Fugue? Sleeping in the side hall. I arranged it all. He fell asleep early this time. I was prepared. I answered crisply. Lujan stared at me. His eyes struggled for a long time. He seemed to finally give up resistance and let go. He fell back onto the pillow in self-abandonment. As you wish, he seemed forced to accept his fate. But he couldn't hide that hint of eagerness. What followed was a bit chaotic. Rhythm and form, amidst the rise and fall. He tightened his grip on my fingers. Bamboo shadows swayed and tangled on the bed curtain. Ink wash spreading, outlines blurred. After who knows how long, the storm gradually subsided. His sweat-dampened hair brushed my cheek, tickling. I had little strength left either. My fingertips unconsciously wound around a strand of his loose black hair. After a while, he propped himself up slightly. His gaze still clung to my face. I raised my somewhat limp hand. Gently, I touched his face. My fingertips slowly traced along his brow bone. Then to his eyes, the corners slightly upturned, now glistening with moisture, not as aggressive anymore. Then to his nose bridge, straight as a mountain ridge. Finally, I stopped at the corner of his lips. A bit redder than usual, I observed closely, as if to fully merge this touch with the clear vision of this moment. He let me do as I pleased. His Adam's apple rolled slightly. Lie what? I suddenly said. I lie. Lie what? His eyes flickered, locking onto me. His voice still carried lingering hoarseness. I curved my eyes into a smile. My fingertip gently pressed on the corner of his lips. I lie you. He froze. Then his eyes seemed to hold 1,000 fireworks, bursting open all at once with a bang, blindingly bright. Outside the window, the moonlight was just right. Inside the bed curtain, warmth was thick. The year Lujan turned 5. He noticed the little girl from Uncle Zhu's house next door. She rarely came out. When she did, she just sat under their old locust tree, quiet and still, unlike other kids who ran and jumped. Lujan, the neighborhood kid leader, often led a group of children climbing trees and swimming in the river. For the first time in his life, he proactively approached her, hands on his hips. He asked, "What are you always sitting there for?" The little girl looked up. Her eyes were misty, unfocused. She said slowly, listening to the wind. Lujan was stunned. What's there to listen to in the wind? He only felt it stung his face. Later, he heard his parents sigh and say that the Zhu family girl had bad eyes. It was troublesome to treat. He felt an inexplicable tightness in his chest. Later, his father and Uncle Zhu went off to do great things. They sent Zhu Xi to his house to be looked after. Lu Zhan thought this girl was too dull. Someone needed to watch over her. So he puffed out his little chest and walked up to her. Hey, call me big brother. From now on, I'll protect you. Zhu Xi turned her head toward the sound. Without hesitation, she called out, Ajahn Gij. That Ajahn Gij was soft and sweet. It made Lu Zhan's heart warm. He felt a great sense of responsibility. Come on, big brother will take you to eat some cake. He took Zhu Xi's hand and slowed his pace. For the next 3 days, Zhu Xi called him wherever she went. Ajahn Gij, I want water. Ajahn Gij, I'm hungry. Ajahn Gij. Lu Zhan followed his mother around, mimicking her. Mind the water temperature, watch the doorstep. Madame Lu found her son's suddenly busy little figure amusing. Oh, you've changed? Know how to take care of your little sister now? Lu Zhan's ears reddened. She called me Gij, so of course I have to take care of her. He was secretly pleased. The feeling of being a big brother wasn't bad. On the 4th day, something changed. The adults were chatting. They started talking about the children's birthdays, and it all became clear. Zhu Xi was actually a few months older than Lu Zhan. Lu Zhan's chopsticks, which were scooping up rice, paused. He turned his head to look at Zhu Xi, who was quietly chewing on some greens. She seemed startled too. Her misty eyes blinked. After the meal, Lu Zhan habitually reached out to take her hand, but Zhu Xi pulled her hand back. Her voice was soft, tinged with hesitation. Ajahn, there's no Gij anymore. Lu Zhan's heart skipped a beat, feeling empty. He put on a brave front. So what if you're a few months older? I'm taller than you. Zhu Xi didn't argue. She just looked at him quietly. Lu Zhan was flustered by her gaze. He held it in for a long time, then said sullenly, call me whatever you want. After saying that, he still habitually reached out to support her arm, leading her around the stone block in the yard. He didn't stop his actions, handing her tea and water, reminding her of the doorstep, everything as usual. But that little bit of pride from being a Gij shattered with a pop. He was a bit frustrated, but watching her quietly drink the water he handed her, her profile so obedient, that frustration faded away. Forget it. Even if I can't be her Gij, I still have to take care of her, he thought, resigned to his fate. After all, I already promised. This job of serving tea and water, he just kept doing it. He kept doing it for so many years. He even wanted to do it for a lifetime. When they were around 12 or 13, the Lu family's residence was no longer what it used to be, deep and vast. There were many servants. The men were often away at war. Zhu Xi still lived with the Lu family. Lu Zhan was also kept at home to study properly. The teacher was an old pedant, with a white beard and strict requirements. That day, he taught a poem from the Book of Songs. Lu Zhan listened to Guan Guan cry the ospreys, on the islet in the river. Something stirred in his heart. The teacher said this poem was about a gentleman's longing for a fair lady. Zhu Xi's image flashed through Lu Zhan's mind, the shadow of her sitting quietly by the window. He rarely didn't daydream. He chewed on those few lines of poetry repeatedly. After the snow, he carried the freshly learned, still warm verses. He ran like the wind to the backyard. The spring day was perfect. The sunlight made one's bones feel lazy. Passing through the moon gate, he saw Zhu Xi at a glance, sitting under the old peach tree, on a stone stool. The peach blossoms were in full bloom, lie a pink tsao above her head. When the wind blew, petals fell on her hair and shoulders. She didn't notice, just slightly tilted her face up. Feeling the warm breeze and the scent of flowers, her profile was soft. Her neck was slender and fair. Lu Zhan's steps halted. The little ripple stirred in his heart by the poem suddenly turned into a surging wave. He heard his own heart pounding like a drum. He took a deep breath and walked over. He deliberately made his footsteps heavy. Hey, Zhu Xi. She turned her head slightly toward the sound. Her misty eyes looked in his direction. Lu Zhan stood in front of her. He cleared his throat to suppress his unease. Today, the teacher taught a poem. What poem? Just a good poem. His eyes drifted elsewhere, the back of his ears hot. I'll recite it for you, she nodded. A faint smile curved at the corners of her lips. All right. Lu Zhan stood up a bit straighter, took a deep breath, and began to recite. Guan Guan cry the ospreys, on the islet in the river. The beginning was still fluent, but when he got to a graceful and virtuous lady, a fine mat for the gentleman, his gaze involuntarily fell back on her face. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the flower branches, casting dappled light spots on her face. She listened intently, her long lashes occasionally trembling. That petal was still clinging to her hair, rising and falling slightly with her breath. His throat tightened. What comes after? Longing for her without success. Awake and asleep, he thinks of her. His voice unconsciously lowered, with a hint of hoarseness. His mind was blank, left with only her image at this moment, and the restless, surging heat in his chest that had nowhere to go. He stumbled through the last few lines. The yard fell silent, only the soft rustle of wind through leaves. Zhu Xi was quiet for a moment, then said softly, that was beautiful. She reached out her hand, groping in the air. A peach blossom petal landed in her palm. She closed her fingers, feeling that incredibly light touch. Lu Zhan looked at her closed hand, then at the pink petal by her temple. Acting on a whim, he reached out and brushed that petal away, extremely lightly and quickly. His fingertip touched her slightly see-you hair, lion electric SOC. He jerked his hand back. He suddenly felt a bit resentful towards that old pedant for teaching what he did. Why did he have to teach this poem? Which brought out all those unclear feelings in his heart. Shu Xiai just continued to tilt her face up, feeling the wind and the sunlight. Lu Xun stood beside her, not saying a word. The ospreys from the poem flapped their wings in his heart. One beat stronger than the